Our big story on the show this week on India Ascends, the India-US trade deal, a pact that's been in the offing for some time, but really picked up pace after the April 2nd tariff bombshell that Donald Trump hit the world with. But by all accounts, it is likely to be a mini deal. That's what many are expecting. Unlikely to be a full-blown agreement, which may take more time and more negotiations. Now let's decode that. But make no mistake, viewers, India is playing hardball. It's not conceding ground to American businesses, not till there is adequate compensation. And that is the big story. US has been pushing its agriculture and dairy products to promote its farmers. Something you can see, it wants to do that. And that's been one of the biggest contentions, a politically powerful section the American farmers are. While India has been resisting tariff concessions on agri-goods to protect our farm base, to ensure that low-priced American agriculture and dairy products do not flood our markets. But that's just half of the story. The other half is that the Indian farmer needs support. He needs the cushion from policymakers, and I'm going to tell you why. There's a reason for it. Look at the difference that exists between the Indian farmer and the American farmer. The average Indian farm is about a little over 1 hectare. Now compare that to America, which is about 185 to 187 hectares. That's the difference. Now the herd size, that's also about 100 times more, 2 to 3, 4 farm animals on an average farm in India as compared to hundreds in the US. Now this means that an American farmer that's part of the powerful lobby and one of President Trump's core base, remember, his base actually exists between the two shores in America, between the two coastlines. He's pushing for opening up of the agri sector in India because there are economies of scale there, and that is going to put the Indian farmer at a huge disadvantage. Now let's talk about the other contentious issue, which is the genetically modified crops, which India doesn't allow, which most of the US crops, whether it's corn, whether it's soya bean production, they are all GM based. And that is another critical issue that's unlikely to be thrashed out right now, but probably would need more give and take. But the one give and take that India has agreed to is for dry fruits and apples, not for corn, soya bean, wheat and dairy, but for dry fruits. Now, what does this mean? This matters even more since it involves politically sensitive states of UP and of Bihar. And on the outside, let's look at outside of agriculture. America wants that India should cut duties when it comes to whiskey, when it comes to cars. But then there should also be a commensurate reciprocity that it has to extend. And that is for India's labor-intensive industries, which is footwear, garments, and several others. And as India keeps its national interest at the center, what's expected is a deal that's likely to focus on some middle ground that could be achieved on a few set of sectors. May not include all of it, may not be a big comprehensive deal, but something that could be more middle ground in its nature. But let's be clear, a limited trade deal is actually better than not being able to thrash out any settlement whatsoever. Because A, it will mean the focus will be on specific sectors where trade can actually boom. The 500 mission that is there could actually take off from there. And it would also mean that negotiations can continue on some of the contentious aspects. And the second is an equally important point, which is that could be the consequence is that with the trade deal out of the way, focus may come back on strategic aspects of the relationship. And that's equally important, that once some sort of a trade deal is thrashed out, then the focus can be on what all and what else can this relationship offer. And I think that's the significant part as far as this trade deal is concerned. And to talk more on that, let me now get in the first top voice on the show. The Indo-US Chamber of Commerce Secretary joining us, which is President Mr. A. Shekhar joining us. So let me start by asking you the first thing, which is that how do you see this trade deal in terms of its potential, its impact?
As I said, India and US, from Indo-American Chamber of Commerce perspective, what we would like to say is because, we have been taking a lot of inputs from our members. We have our 1,800 strong members. The main thing is, we know that the deal is around $210 billion to grow to 500, which is, so India's largest trading partner for last year has been United States. So it is extremely big for us. that this deal has to go, which is good for both the countries. And for USA, we are the 9th largest trading partner. And USA is looking forward to working with us to see that they can have better supply chain resilience. Whenever the trade volumes are going to increase, it definitely means it's a gain for us, for both the countries. So that itself is a first testament to show that there is going to be gains for us for this type of a trade deal, because the US is the largest consumption country in the world. And it's one of the biggest markets to which we can address. And we have certain strengths, like, one of the things is we have very high engineering goods, textiles, in bulk pharma drugs, and also, we have so many areas in which we'll be able to work with them, which would be beneficial for us. And similarly for United States, see, this is one of the largest democratic country on the other side, with whom there is a growing middle class, which is growing in bigger in size, where the consumption, personal consumption, is likely to grow, which would also be a good market for United States also to look at us. So it's a sort of a win-win on both ends, which is what is there.
All right. Then, Mr. Shekhar, let me ask you this, and that's at the crux of how one views this trade deal, which is it better to have a limited trade deal, get it out of the way, rather than to keep having long, drawn negotiations over a comprehensive trade pact that may actually take longer because there are political interests at stake as well?
Yes, agriculture and dairy products are, one of the things is both they are politically sensitive is one. Not only that, what is most needed is that, see, we have to understand that the Indian agriculture is all on, small farmers, an average size of about 2.5 acres, whereas the American ones are all in the numbers which could be, say, 1,000 times of the size or so. So, and that makes a big difference. So naturally, it is not a level playing field when it comes to that. Similarly, when you look at the dairy, see, we work on a very a large cooperative systems, and there are multitudes of sources on which, and smaller ones which are there. So these are naturally, it's not a very clear level playing one. So every government will have to see what is right for them. And it's not only that, but US can offer many other things. We have a lot of energy requirements, which US can definitely help us. And I think that should also be there. We will definitely have some amount of more of agricultural products which may come in. What is more worrying us is that we are to ensure that we have a sort of a stricter quota on anything to do with genetically modified products.
Okay.
So those are of ones which probably our country would take a lot of care to see that we don't disrupt the chain which is right now operating. Basically, we will have a larger strength, because the one is that I can offer you a big manufacturing talent pool, which can provide you the products as an alternative. Of course, we would be looking at, higher end of engineering side is where we would be really fitting in. Because if you look at China's manufacturing base or capability is so large. They almost have a capacity which could even service the world a few times over. So you don't stand there. So we definitely need a sort of a tariff advantage between those countries, which will be a real fair one. And at the same time, we can provide you with, once we get some better manufacturing technologies and other things from the US, which US can offer, they would be able to get certain products and services at which would be advantageous to them. So this is where we look at it. And this deal would also be, this will be one of the points which would probably offset the the agricultural one sticky issues which can go around which is happening between our two countries.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there, sir. Thanks much for speaking to us. As these negotiations are continuing, it seems that one cannot only be talking about negotiations through the prism of deadlines. And I think that's extremely important that Union Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal on the trade deal has said and made a very important statement that negotiations are underway, but an FTA will be done only when it's a win-win. Let's get in my colleague Himanshu Shekhar for more on this. All right, let's get in Himanshu for more on this. Himanshu, you've been speaking to your sources and the government is also very clear that the trade deal will happen, but only when Indian interests are protected, secured and addressed.
That's right, and that is the important message that Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has just given in Bharat Mandapam. He was here for the toy-based program, and when we asked him how much hopeful he is of an interim India-US trade deal ahead of the July 9 deadline, he made a very important statement. I think a couple of things that he has said, I think is a very clear indication that India, of course, will put its national interest at the front before finalizing any such trade deal with the US. He said that we are not only talking to US, we are talking to the EU, we are talking to Oman, we are talking to New Zealand. Any developed country, if it wants to do a free trade agreement, we're ready to start talks with them. But these free trade agreements will only be signed if it supports or helps India's national interest. He said that we never get into a free trade agreement or any kind of trade deal with a specific deadline in mind. For us, the topmost priority is India's national interest. And it's only when we are convinced that India's national interest is being served in a trade deal, then only we agree to such trade deals. So I think in many words, he has made it very clear that whether it is the interim trade deal or the BTA talks that are going on with US or FTA with any other country, India, of course, will give topmost priority to its own national interest. And I think the timing of Commerce Minister's statement is very, very significant. It comes at a time when we have been told by sources that the deal now is in the very, very final stages. Some officials even are indicating that this could be imminent. It all up to now US President Donald Trump to take a final call on what agreement has been reached between the official level talks between India and the US. So I think it's a wait and watch situation, but Commerce Minister very categorically making it in very clear terms that we will have a deal only if it serves India's national interest. All
right, I'm going to leave it there. Himanshu Shekhar, my colleague, giving us the very latest there. A deal will happen, but a deal will happen on India's terms. That's the big story there. A trade deal is in the pipeline. There are expectations that it could be 24 to 48 hours as well. But again, negotiations are continuing, but a deal will take place only when it serves Indian interests, protects our interests, and addresses the concerns that we've been flagging. Before that, there is no deal on the table, and that's what Himanshu was telling right there. All right.